Hey everyone, this is Nashwauk Steve. So I'm going to be making a butcher block countertop in this video. I've done a few butcher block type things before and I'm showing you one right now. This is a bench we have in our foyer. I made it just using simple 2x4s that were all cut, basically ripped them down in half and then made a butcher block type surface out of it. It's not ready for food prep, it's not perfect. But that's kind of what I'm going to do for this countertop that I'm going to make as well. It's going to be 12 feet long, going to be about around 24 inches deep, and it'll be used in a place that's not going to be necessarily used for food prep, but it's kind of just a kitchenette area that we have in a space in our attic. So I'm going to show you what I do to get this project moving forward, and hopefully we learn something along the way. Like I said, in the one I made before, it turned out like this. This is about 10 feet long. Some lessons I did learn about it. Definitely could have handled more polyurethane on it because it did chip out in a few spots. Those are easy touch-ups with just a brown marker or a stain pen. The other thing to note is anytime you have glue that seeps out, you're going to get a real bad stain area. I knew better than that, but I didn't clean it up as well as I should have. So we got some big glue blobs here that we want to make sure we don't have on the next project moving forward. Those are the things we'll keep in mind as we step through this project. Okay, for ripping down a 2x4 into two equal pieces, you start off with a board that is 3.5 inches thick. And you want to make it exactly two pieces that are exactly the same. So let's divide that by 2. And we get 1 3/4 inches per side of the board to make them equal. If we just set our saw to 1 3/4, we would end up having one side would be 1 3/4, but the other side that was left over would end up being shorter, and that's because we didn't account for the width of the saw blade. So a saw blade is approximately 1/8 inch thick, so we want to have half of that saw blade width taken up on either side of the board. So we need to take 1/16 off of here. So we're going to subtract 1/16, and if we do that math, that ends up being 1 11/16. Because 1 3/4 is essentially 1 12/16. So we're just removing 1. So that's what we want to set our saw to. So think of it like this. We have our board and it's 3.5 inches across. And then we're going to saw out a little chunk here that's 1/8 inch here. This is the 1/8 inch saw blade. So each side needs to be 1 11/16 and 1 11/16. Add all that up and we'll have 3.5 inches and we'll have two perfectly sized pieces of wood to make our butcher block with. Now that I have that set, I'm going to go ahead and run a test piece through, just a little scrap of wood. We'll run it through and make sure that when we put it through this way, when I flip it over, that the line from the saw blade should match up exactly with the one before. If it didn't, we'll make some minor adjustments, but let's see what we get first. Let's see how that lines up now. Lines are right up with that slot, and it was right in, so we're good to go. We'll keep it like this, and we'll start ripping our boards. All right, from 2x4s down to what could be a butcher block countertop. So I did the math on mine. I wanted 25 inches total depth of the countertop. So I needed over 16. So I went to 17 of these, so I have enough to do it. And keep in mind, these are just construction grade 2x4s, 12 foot long. They're not really, super high quality. So I did lose a few going through it. Some that just had cracks in them that I didn't like or didn't quite cut perfectly. I had enough where I could cut a few extra and still be okay. So, and there are some burn marks on it and that sort of thing. So if you're looking for something to be like food grade, really fancy, perfectly flat, yeah, this isn't your method. But if something a little more rustic is okay and it's, all right to have a few burn marks like that, then might be the method for you. So that's what I'm going to do because I'm okay with that. Okay, here's my setup for assembling the butcher block. We've got just some of the strips of 2x4 cut down there. I chose a spot of the garage that I know is flat, so that'll help in assembling everything too. Although the top is going to be the most important part to make sure it's flush. Hearing protection, because I'm going to be using an air nailer. I've got some bar clamps to hold everything together as I'm assembling. Here I've got a pre-drill bit and countersink, because I'm going to be putting 3-inch screws in, and I don't want there to be anything sticking out proud of the screw hole and the bit for that. We'll be using a lot of wood glue as we go through. There are my 3-inch screws, and there is the framing nailer I'm going to use. I have it loaded up with 2 3/8 inch ring shank nails. The ring shank nails will hold things really tight and serve kind of as a clamp as we go through this. They are a pain to get out though, so hopefully we don't have to try to remove any. And then compressed air there from the hose. So we're going to go ahead and set this up. I'm going to go start by going the first 2. I plan on just holding with the clamp, nice and flush with glue in between the seam. And then I'll go through and put a few screws in. And once I'm satisfied with that, I will follow up with the nailer and do it that way. I'm going to set the phone up on the side here to just videotape what I do. And we'll see what it looks like. I don't have an exact 100% plan, but we're going to see how it goes. Okay, so I'll just show you what I just did here. It worked to clamp it, get it nice and flush, put a screw in here and there. I thought for a while I could just go to the nailer alone, but it wasn't drawing it in like I'd hoped. So there are some places where you can see a little bit of a gap like this here. I could probably clamp that and get it. I think that's going to be okay. I had this situation here where this was actually a gap, and I put a screw in there and it just held just fine. So I'm going to put a few more nails in now. But overall, I think that method is going to work. Probably every few feet, I've got a screw. And it's not perfect. I'm trying to line it up as best I can here. I mean, it's good, but we're going to do some heavy sanding at the end, so I'm not worried about that at this point. We'll keep moving. I'll show you a closer view of what I'm actually doing here. So get my clamp in there, see that. And then as I tighten up, I gotta feel where I'm at with flushness on this thing. This one's actually a little proud on this close one, which I've had a struggle with that on occasion. So what I do is lift this up, put a screw underneath the other part of it there, and I can get this front down a little bit, make it nice and flush. Just like that. Then perfectly smooth. Tighten it down. Grab my pre-drill. Here. Pre-drill it, countersink. And then 3-inch decking screws is what I have. And I repeat that about every 2 feet. And then I come back at the end and then throw nails in between all those. So I've got fasteners about every foot, but that keeps the seam nice and tight. So that'll make a good product when we're done. Still just repeating the process. Over halfway there. I have 17 to do, so we're getting there. Okay, so check it out. We got it finished here. All 17 pieces are on there. I realized I pretty much made a bowling alley. That's what this really looks like. But it's just all glued, and I'm gonna let it keep it clamped for a while here. Screwed, nailed together, everything. The next thing I'm gonna do is get the belt sander out and see what I can do about sanding off. If you look close, there's a lot of saw marks, and there's a little bit of variance between boards. I try to get it, I mean, it's pretty minimal, but I think hitting it with the belt sander will knock those edges down. Take this so it's a little more smooth, so it'll be better for a countertop. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the belt sander fired up and start making some sawdust. Okay, so a little hiccup I came across was the fact that my belt sander, I only had one belt for it, and it was like a 36 grit belt that I bought intentionally for like smoothing down some concrete that I have here that I need to work on. So 36 grit, in my opinion, is going to be too coarse for this. It's going to actually mar the wood and make it worse than it is, I think. So what I did is I put some 60 grit on my finish sander, which just uses like partial sheets, so I have plenty of those. I'm going to do that first and try to take some of this off here and see how it goes. So working with what I have. Okay, it's probably hard to tell on the video, but this is pretty smooth. I'm not going to get slivers doing this. It's knocking down that pretty well. It is leaving some saw marks in here, which I kind of think is going to have some appeal, actually. So down here where I haven't sanded yet, it's still very rough. Yeah, so this is definitely helping. I'm going to get it all sanded with this 60 grit and then make a decision on if I want to do anything more with it. And then the other decision to be made is about the front edge, if I want to round that off or if we want to just sand it down. We'll figure that out later. I'm going to keep sanding. All right, I got this board up on Sawhorse's countertop, and I just cut off the ends now. I did a nice measurement up where this is going to be installed, so I knew exactly how wide to make it in the front and in the back, and then cut off the excess. Some of it broke off as I was cutting it, but so now we have a good, perfectly dimensioned countertop here. I'm going to do one more sand. I'm going to move it to 120 grit now, being that I did 60 the first time. And then we'll be ready for some stain. All right, so on the fine tuning side of this thing, I took a vacuum cleaner, sucked up all the dust I could from the crevices in there. Now I'm going to take a damp washcloth, wipe it all down that way. That's just for 2 parts. It will get up any dust that's remaining, and second, the moisture opens up the pores of the wood slightly, so that it'll take the stain better. And then the last step is going to be this, doing a tack cloth on it. It's like a sticky cheesecloth kind of thing that will pick up any fine dust, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to staining it and varnishing it. But really, for the sake of this video, this is how you would build a butcher block countertop if you wanted to do something like that. The finishing is pretty much up to the project you have and how you want to do it. I'm going to show you how I do mine. It's going to be a little bit stranger than you'd probably do. It's going to be a actual blue stain that we have that we're going to use, and then polyurethane over that. But you could finish it however you choose. So from here on out, I'll just show you what I do with mine, but that's pretty much it for the how-to part of this video. All right, there's the countertop in place. Still not varnished, but just stained and set in place. And I'll fasten it from underneath and then we'll varnish. Okay, we've got this installed here. We're putting on the final step here, polyurethane. That's the product I'm using there. Gonna go on multiple coats, nice and thin each coat, and sand between it. So that's what we got going on. All right, everyone, this is it for me on this project. I have the polyurethane on there. I'm happy with how it looks. There's the final product in the background there. So if you're looking to do a cheap countertop, this butcher block idea with 2x4s works pretty well. Like I said, I'm very happy with it. Not going to be used for food prep, but yeah, it's looking pretty good. So there's a last glimpse of it. It's kind of got some fresh varnish on it, but overall turned out pretty nice. So anyway, thanks for watching.